My name is Jim Ryan, and I'm the new instructional designer here at EWU. My job here is to take a look at the programs, courses, and people from a different point of view, to see how all these Lego pieces fit, and to imagine how I can help put them together differently to make something new and amazing. Welcome to the Play to Learn podcast. Today, I'm meeting with my longtime friend and former work partner, Katherine Tanski. Kate is an amazing and talented instructional designer at Green River College, writer, editor, and lover of comic books and comic book culture. She even has a web publication she manages called Women Write About Comics. This interview will be the first in a series. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy. It's Kate and Jim in the morning. Except it's 2 and
in the afternoon.
2 in the afternoon. That's fine.
Still,
How in the heck have you been?
yeah, it's really good. So actually, this week is my 6th month at this new job, new position. So, and it's just been a really great change of pace, different things. As you know, now that you're an instructional designer, when I knew you were a media producer, but as an instructional designer, that title has a lot of different responsibilities underneath it, and it totally varies from corporate to higher ed and from one school to the other. And so it's a broad umbrella.
It is. It leaves a lot up to interpretation for either the administration or the person filling that position.
Yeah, there's a lot of flexibility within that not well understood administratively, I guess, kind of category of instructional design. I also do a lot of faculty development work now, which makes me really happy because that's kind of where I started, was doing more faculty development work. And a lot of times that does get connected to instructional design or instructional design areas within the college. Technically, this is under e-learning, but we do faculty development for everybody. Like, it doesn't have to be just online instructors. I once went to a job opportunity, a job interview where they called it an institutionally neutral space. And I really liked that description because I'm not associated or affiliated with any particular department. It's for everybody, like instructional design for all.
Yeah, I feel like we have very similar positions then with that description of it, but I think we might be getting a little ahead of ourselves before diving into this first because nobody else knows how we know each other. So maybe we should first, before we get into the fun stuff, go back back to the beginning of when we first met.
We'll do some retroactive continuity and edit this out of sequence, right?
I mean, yeah, exactly. We'll retcon it and then
So, hi.
yeah.
Hello.
So, why don't you go ahead and tell a story about how we first met and then what we started working on and how we developed these strategies that we're working on now?
Yeah, so I was an instructional designer at North Idaho College, and I was used to just instructional design type stuff. It was very Canvas support, technical support, learning objectives, quality matters type stuff. We did not have a media production team at all. There was no it was like up to the faculty to do what they wished and what they could. There was no institutional support for that at all. So then I got the job at Gonzaga, and then the way that it was kind of a time of upheaval and restructuring, shall we say, which I knew nothing about going into this. I was just really excited. In the course of that restructuring, we were paired off into teams, right, to kind of be assigned to various schools and programs. And you and I were teamed up, and it was totally like a blind date situation of like, you know,
The best one.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I think we lucked out. I really do. And yeah, it was during the pandemic too. So that also has a lot to do with, I think, I don't want to say we trauma bonded because that's a misuse of that kind of phrase. But we definitely were put into situations where we had to be communicating with each other online for long periods of time and available for faculty for long periods of time. And we had office hours or drop in hours that we were assigned. And that meant you and I hanging out in a Zoom room for hours at a time, multiple times a week, and we just got to know each other, which is super cool.
Well, and I think
Yeah.
beyond that, we were able to take that opportunity of that unique situation to really start exploring the creative possibilities of what can be done with instructional design. And maybe it had been done before, probably has, but it was definitely new to us. And I think it set us down a path that once you start going down that path, there's no going back.
That's so
And
true.
and, oddly enough, some of those same themes that we were exploring back in the day have resurfaced during my brief time here that we can cover. But why don't you talk about some of the courses that we worked on that we had so much fun with?
Well, I just want to say also that like we dreamed of a podcast like this. That was one of our dreams. We were
Yep.
like, what we should do is sit down with the two of us and a faculty member and talk about this kind of stuff. So I'm so happy that you get to do that now. And I'm so happy to be a guest. And yeah, I was reflecting on our projects. So after I left Gonzaga, because I left Gonzaga first, I went to Oregon State E campus that had a huge media production team. And I was well prepared for working with that because of working with you. Because basically, you and I came at this School of Leadership Studies from two different backgrounds, two different sets of skills with one goal, and really were able to have a dynamic partnership of seeing individual course elements and how they go together, and how, yes, you can have an awesome course without media units. There's plenty of ways, you don't have to. But if you can have media, then that takes your course to another level. And then I was thinking about my favorite project that I did with you, which is what I always tell people about, which is the zombie
Mhm,
course.
mhm. Yep, yep.
It's it was so much fun. So this instructor, Jennifer, came to us with basically a public health course. We were still in the late stages of the pandemic. I don't want to say we're out of the pandemic because, we're never out of it, but the late stages of the pandemic. And she wanted to talk about messaging and pandemic messaging. And I was like, well, what if we did a zombie pandemic? And And then from there, we had this idea to create a full on, not, I don't want to say it's a simulation and it's not quite a game, but it's definitely a narrative framework scenario on a course level, which was something totally new to me. And I haven't seen it really done the same way before. Like I've seen themed courses before, but we really structured this as a large, 10-week immersive simulation experience for these students. And you just went above and beyond when it came to the media for that.
Well, I don't know if it was so much I went because you were there the whole way through writing scripts,
Yeah.
coming up with
Yeah.
story ideas,
Yeah.
and then I was there figuring out how to make it happen visually, or we found a few guests for doing, like a simulated zombie apocalypse podcast, and then so it just kind of all came together because we were just seeing eye to eye on everything, and we were bouncing ideas off each other and just having so much fun with it, which
Yeah.
is the key to making really immersive and engaging courses. If you're having fun with it, if the instructors are having fun with it, you're more than likely going to make sure that the students are having fun with it.
Yeah. And you and I are both creative people. I've done creative writing and worked in that area, and you have done other kinds of content creation and creative stuff on your own too. And so these were skill sets that we have that other instructional designers don't have. So that's very much where it was like best spelling date ever. We both have this like creative thing in us. And the other part of that is, of course, Jennifer, who I'm still sort of friendly with, even though we're both way away from Gonzaga now, trusted us. She gave us essentially free reign to do what we thought would be cool and appropriate. And we always check in with her about like how would this be used in the course, but at the same time it was very much I trust your vision in terms of the types of things that you want to create. We spoke about news, like you said, sort of like news reports, and then a podcast with a zombie survivalist, and then I wanted a scene with a zombie as like a potential from the zombie's perspective. I was very inspired by two zombie things. One, and this was I shared with her, I Zombie, the TV show.
Right.
which I loved that sort of tone of like zombies are just everyday people, like they're still people, even though they're zombies and they're just trying to do the best they can. And then, or which is like Romeo and Juliet from zombie perspective in terms of the consciousness of a zombie, of how to trust zombies again. So there's these two different things that were going on, and just the visual look of that movie, I liked those zombies better than some of the other zombies aesthetically. But yeah, like I said, having Jennifer really trust us and then being able to present to her these like finished and done mini movies, was just a really cool thing.
So you've been in contact with her. Did she give you any feedback as to how the students, like, what they felt going through the course?
Yeah, I mean, I have that somewhere written down. I don't remember what it was, but basically, I guess this is the other thing, though, that she was very clear with us also, and you kind of touched on it earlier. A lot of this is for the instructor as much, if not more so, than the students. And I say this as someone who has taught the same subject for a long time, and you have also taught the same subject for a long time. If you can breathe fresh life into something that you have taught, 100 times before, the enjoyment you get out of it is so important. And the students will get there. There's always going to be students who engage or not engage in whatever it is. It doesn't matter if it's the most dry bones technical training. I'm in one right now, these dry bones technical trainings where, going into it, here's the learning objectives and here's what I have to do to meet this. There's always going to be students who engage or not engage versus a zombie apocalypse scenario where there may be students who choose not to engage in it because it's just not something they're interested in. But there's always going to be students who don't engage. So why not do something fun that you like?
Yeah, exactly. And I think even if those students aren't engaging, the content helps make the teacher feel more engaged. And so they're going to feel more passionate
Exactly.
and having fun with the class. And by proxy, that's going to maybe initiate some engagement from those students who are disengaged from the content.
Yeah, I mean, it just is something new and different. And it's more than just a coat of paint too. And I think that's something that we see often. It takes time to totally reimagine the way that you're going to do something. And that can be really scary for people. And sometimes when you're taking risk as a teacher and trying to think about redevelopment, you'll do one small change. And if that goes great, then you might go with more changes. But if that doesn't go great, then you might be scared of ever making change ever again. Just this idea of your enjoyment as an instructor should matter. And that's something that I've always brought to my instructional design, no matter what, even when it's not zombies and fun things like this. Like I have always said, I try to fit the instructor's pedagogy into the course. I'm not trying to change the way that the instructor wants to teach the course or who they are, what their identity is. We are building the course to meet and match that pedagogy. I am not teaching the instructor how to teach the course a specific way and making them fit this pedagogy of what we think teaching is and what online learning is and what it should be. So I think that that's something that we don't see enough of in instructional design. We talk about best practices and all that kinds of stuff, but the best practice is the one that makes teaching fun.
Yeah, and you're establishing trust between yourself and the instructor, and making
Mhm.
them comfortable enough to express their creativity. And then
Yes.
you're just being the facilitator of that creativity and then helping them build it into their vision.
Yes, and resources are key. We always have that dream big moment, like when you have that first initial consultation with a teacher who wants to redevelop their course and they really want to start from the beginning. It's like, okay, well, if you could have anything, if it could look like anything, what would you want it to look like? Give me your Pinterest board, give me your like mood board. What's the vibe of the course? There's a lot of technical language and education about the takeaways. What do you want the students to take away from the course? What's the big idea when we talk about backwards course design? That sort of big takeaway idea of the idea, but we don't often talk about the space in which that idea is going to be taught, especially in online courses, because they are spaces. And you and I are at that age where we grew up in online spaces. you know?
We were there for the original online space, like with
Yes,
dial up
yes,
into the bulletin board systems.
yes.
Oh
Yep.
my God. Yes.
Message boards. So I was actually on Mac. We were on Mac very early. So we didn't have AOL because that was not on Mac. So
Right.
we had a Mac Performa, and it had its own town hall system. It almost looked a little bit like, in the movie Jurassic Park when she's trying to navigate the different screens in the park when she's trying to see the park bigger is.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and it's like these little squares that you shoot around. Like that was kind of what it was like. You would navigate this virtual city to go to these different places on the Mac version of the internet back in the day. And I think, though, to some extent, that idea of visualizing online spaces for me came from that, as opposed to like people who were on, what was that, Juno? Do you remember Juno?
I
And
remember Juno a little bit. There's Prodigy
yeah,
online
Prodigy
that
also,
had that
yes.
kind of interface.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and then there was AOL, but I think Prodigy is probably closer to what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. This idea of people really wanted to see virtual spaces. And I mean, we still do. Like, look at Meta and virtual reality and all of this stuff. We still want to inhabit these digital spaces and still see them that way. So, if we can tap into that aesthetic or vibe or energy of a virtual space, and especially here in LMS, where it can be very institutional in sort of the worst sense of how do we make that experience feel more inviting, welcoming, like a real online space separate from everything else that's happening.
Yeah, and it's really kind of dependent on, I guess, the goals of the institution.
Mhm,
Because prior to me being here and during COVID, EW went hard into just online courses only.
mhm.
But with all the changes that have been going on, the big push is now going to either in person or in person hybrid. You know, so online is always going to be, in my point of view, a part of the classroom experience, and it should never be separated from that because there's so much content that the teachers need to make available online for any course. It doesn't matter if it's even 100% in person. You need to have content that is available online that supports what you're teaching, and it's really interesting to see the different philosophies and the different support levels between places like where we were employed and places where we're employed now. There is so much freedom here and so much excitement for trying new things and experimenting and supporting each other. And it's a stark contrast, personally.
Yeah, it's interesting because, yeah, I went to Oregon State, which is just a huge, ginormous beast, and their e-campus is rightly so recognized as one of the top places in the country. But they had close to 20 instructional designers. So going from where I started with two, and then at Gonzaga, we were technically there was three in the three different teams, and I was working with you to go to 20. But then they also had an additional 20 media producers, and then they had additional five web designers who were creating brand new software interfaces and games and all of this really cool stuff. They made their own AI generated library that was all in house stuff. So there was all these really cool things that were happening even within this huge sort of corporate branded structure, because the people who were doing it were just creative. And so that's the other thing is sometimes you just find yourself around creative people and they create this environment as a little island within an institution. And it's really great. The place that I'm at right now, I'm back to being a small team. There's no media people. So we're not able to do all the cool, fun media type things that I was able to do at the other places. But at a community college, you really get faculty who are, I don't want to say student centered because it's so much more than that. It's really a service oriented position. Everything that they do is for the students because the students are part of their community and they see their value as human beings and how they contribute to the community outside of their lives in school. It's a totally different approach than a lot of larger school systems or even I went to a small private liberal arts school, and that was also very different in terms of how they viewed you as a student. And so these faculty that I'm working with right now at Green River College are so dedicated to teaching and teaching students and engaging with them and making it the best possible and most equitable experience, no matter what the delivery format. Green River actually technically has like 6 versions of types of hybrids and onlines and synchronous online and asynchronous online that was started even before the pandemic and then has expanded. So they are trying to meet students where they're at in every single configuration. But to go back to your point, also the LMS is a component of every face-to-face course, whether or not faculty want to accept it and see it that way. It is a space that is part of your classroom. And if you decorate that space, students are going to see it as connected to that classroom. And if you use it as a file repository, students are going to treat your class like a file repository, you know?
Yeah, and I always keep thinking back to us working together and how much of I mean, I wanna say that you taught me everything I know about instructional design. Really, I got to see how to do things the best way firsthand through working with you, and I think that's what made it really exciting for me, is that I got to learn something new from somebody who was passionate about and knew exactly what they wanted, and that was so cool to be able to see firsthand. And it also teaching me a lot of strategy when it comes to understanding the frameworks that you're in. So, like in your example, or I guess in my example, there is a group of instructional designers that work for IT department that manage the Canvas environment, right? So they're very the technical side of it, and then my job is mostly faculty development.
Mhm.
So I'm going out, I'm doing workshops on different topics. I'm also working with faculty and helping them build content with them. But when you're like the one
Mhm.
who has to, be responsible for meeting all these different teachers across the different departments in all of campus, you can't think in a one-on-one type of strategy. You have
Mhm.
to think, how can I reach as many instructors as possible at the same time, give them the information and the tools they need without having to spend every day going back and forth trying to do what we did before, which was just cramming as much content and making it as fast as we could every second of every day, because we were burned out. I mean, we had a lot of fun, but we got really burned out because how many classes were we doing at one time? It seemed like we were doing a lot of different programs at the same time and a lot of classes at the same time.
Yeah, technically we were servicing 2 master's programs and 1 PhD program. And so from a project management standpoint, we had, maybe 6 courses in various states of development. And it seemed, of course, that right before the start of the term was when everything would get super busy and all 6 people come back ready to start. No matter, it always happened right before the deadline. Um, at Oregon State, I was working on roughly like 18 courses at a time in various stages because it was a 2-term development process. And so you were handed 8 courses and then 8 more, and then you still supported them. And some of them went longer than 2 terms as things go. And that was just intensive building, like kind of what we did at Gonzaga, but more so it was scaled up to the next level. And they had the labor and support to do that. And even so, it was, yeah, running on maximum to try to work with 6 different instructors or 8 different instructors to customize everything. Every single web page had to have code that was custom designed because Canvas is not real HTML, it's fake HTML. And so you can't really import things or do things if even if you know web design, CSS, it's not real CSS. And getting all the media and organizing things and all these moving parts. It was very intense. And so now, yes, like I said, having to scale back and be in a totally different position where it's faculty development, I do get to do some of my favorite work, which is enabling faculty to work without me, which a lot of people are like, what do you mean you don't want repeat customers? And I'm like, absolutely not, because there's so many faculty that are out there. And I love people who come back and want to do more, but my goal is always to enable them to do it themselves.
Yeah, and that's a great point, and that's the absolute end goal for
Yeah.
people in our position, but I think there's, like, different levels of relief that we offer, so there are some teachers out there that can literally do it all, and they are just rock stars. I've got a
Mhm.
bunch of them here, and they are so cool. I've already done a bunch of podcasts with them. There's still one I need to hit up, but they're just great to be around and toss ideas with because they are fully capable of doing all this content. And then there's ones that are at that very high level but still will need some support for doing little various things like, oh, can you put some titles on this one or a graphic? Just really simple stuff. So there's still a little bit of that one-on-one involvement at the fun level, I want to say, but not at the level where you wake up and you're married to your computer screen and you don't leave it until you go to sleep at night.
Yeah. Yeah, work-life balance. And work-life balance for faculty. I was faculty for a long time, and I was faculty at a time before instructional design was really even talked about, or was if it was spoken about, it was in that corporate IT sense, and there are still a lot of IT corporate designers, and higher ed is a very different animal, the way that instructional design works, because we have such a wide variety of teaching styles, right? Of teaching preferences, teaching identities, teaching philosophies. And I love being able to help faculty do things that they want to do. And yes, a lot of that is teaching it so they don't feel like they're dependent on me. I never want to gatekeep knowledge. But also, as I've told many faculty, this is literally my job to help you and to do this for you. If you don't want me to do it, then absolutely I will teach you how to do it. But it is my job to make this homepage for you, or to help you reframe your language in here, to source responsibly citations and media, to edit things for you, create new activities, assessments, brainstorm things with you. But also, to your point of like even going in and checking accessibility on a document, that is my job, is to help you with your teaching. And if that means I don't know how to make this document accessible, then we'll sit down and we'll tackle it. So that's instructional design, right? It can be big, large scale stuff, but also small stuff, but it's all about connecting with faculty and supporting them.
Yeah, so the funny story is that my first day starting here, obviously I was nervous first day. Do I know what I'm doing? Who are all these people? And I didn't know when I was going to get my first chance to meet with a faculty member. But there was a specific faculty member who was friends with my boss that had been, like, waiting in the wings for the minute that I sat down at my desk, and her name is Gina Petrie, and she works in the ESL program, or English as Foreign Language program, and so she sent me this email saying, "Hey, I've just got this grant to design this course. I'm looking to make some more engaging elements. Are you available?" And I was like, "Let's go." I just ran over to her office, I brought my computer, sat down, and we just started vibing, like, for the next hour or 2, and we were able to build this amazing course together. I never really done it that way before, and it started me thinking, "Well, how the hell else am I gonna go out and meet all these instructors that I'm gonna need to be working with?" I can go to a couple meetings where I'll say up and say, "Hi, my name is Jim, and I'm also an instructional designer." And then sit back down and that'll be my little spiel. But I just started saying, hey, well, I'll just walk around campus and go into these different departments and see if I can start just talking to these people and seeing what they need. And weirdly enough, it's a strategy that's worked out pretty well. Because I meet all these fantastic faculty, we start talking, I learn about what their needs and their ideas are and what they want to accomplish. I'm like, "Well, okay, yeah, we can do that, and so let's sit down and talk about it. Let's put that into a podcast format, and then let's also get together and talk about how we can bring this, content not just to your students, but to the other faculty." Because as you well know, when it comes to colleges and universities, everything exists in these tight little silos, and everybody gets out of bed, brushes their teeth, puts on their clothes, goes to work, sits down in the office, goes to the class, teaches the class, goes back to their office, goes home, and it's done. But that's a lot of their mentality, and they don't really get out of there and actually start talking to each other because every single department has content that is cross-seeded with other departments, chemistry and art, engineering and math. Well, I mean, I guess that one's obvious, but engineering and like, some music or something, all these departments have this link and they aren't exploring it as much as they could because they're going to have students that are going to go between these different courses. And when you can make that link between those two subjects and see how everything is connected together and how things work, that really builds people's creativity. It builds the students' creativity. It builds the instructors' creativity, and it makes the community stronger. And that's what I really want to do. I want to bring these departments together, make them see that they're all resources for each other, that they can build and make something better than they could individually.
Yeah, it's interdisciplinary work is so much fun. I'm actually working with two faculty as part of my, again, like instructional design responsibility is programmatic support for COIL, which is Collaborative Online International Learning. You may have COIL at EWU. I know Spokane Falls Community College has a big COIL program there. And they set up interdisciplinary, intercultural, international collaborations with faculty. So it's not just like collaborations between you and an instructor in Morocco. It's a music teacher and a biologist, or something like that. Like that's the point of the program is to get people to learn about something that they never thought could be connected and make connections and then also make, global and interpersonal and intercultural connections. And there's so much joy to see people make those connections with each other. I know that, like I said, I'm working with the people who actually train the people who are doing this because they did it themselves and they had such a wonderful experience. And it's that watching, it's that joy of being a teacher, like seeing people and seeing their joy and seeing them learn something about themselves and each other and about the world. And yeah, being able to be part of interdisciplinary stuff like that is just super cool because I think a lot of us in higher education, whether we're teachers or not, are huge nerds. We are interested about the world. We're curious about the world. We have all our nerdy interests. And so one of the things I love about instructional design is I get to be a student in all of these courses. And some do subject matter I know better than others. Computer science is way over my head, but I was doing a lot of work with like wildlife courses and sustainability courses. And I was like, this is so cool. I just love learning about this stuff myself.
Yeah, and I felt the exact same way. Whenever I get to participate in building these courses, I get to be that it's like a free student. I get to I get to learn all about it. But what are some projects that you either have been working on there at Green River College or you're going to be working on that you're excited about?
The COIL stuff is big. I think the biggest thing that we're talking about on our college right now is accessibility. And because of the DOJ ruling, and a lot of people are stressed out about that. And so we've been doing a lot of work to talk with faculty and work with faculty and create resources for faculty on what accessibility means, even something like alt text, how to create good alt text, but also what is alt text. A lot of people think that things that are going to be printed need to have alt text. And it's like, no, alt text is digital metadata. It's for digital documents. So if you are going to print it and then post it online, yes, it has to have alt text. But if it is physical only, because you are an in-person classroom, that's a different situation. And thinking about accessibility from a different perspective of having to rethink what you're doing. It's a good opportunity in some ways. If someone is looking at a bunch of quizzes that have images in them and they're thinking, I have to alt tag 1,000 images, that's going to be exhausting. And then you give them the suggestion of, well, what would be an alternative way to assess the knowledge that you have been doing through an image-based quiz. And they may not think it would be more work to totally reimagine what they're doing, but as we've talked about, the opportunity to rethink what you're doing, to get creative, to breathe new life into your subject area can be really exciting. And so I'm kind of happy in some ways that this accessibility crisis is an opportunity for us to rethink the way that we've been teaching some of these things to be more inclusive, but also just a different way of evaluating things. I guess the other thing that I'm doing more is OER work, open educational resources. Equity is a big thing, especially at community colleges, but everywhere for students, cost of textbooks, but also resources and labor and things like not reinventing the wheel. There are so many resources out there. And again, connecting faculty with a really great online textbook or an online game or worksheets or activities that already exist out there that is less work for them in terms of having to create something from scratch. That is something that can help them with their teaching. Like that's also amazing. Being able to connect people with really cool things that already exist out there and promote the work of other teachers who've already done that. That's fun.
Absolutely. I could see there being collaborative effort between EWU and Green River College with this because I would so do this all the
I
time.
know. I
It,
know. It's so fun.
so speaking of projects and ones, I guess you could say that I'm emulating in your honor. There's this summer bridge program for underprivileged kids. First time college students coming into Eastern. It's like an 8-day, so it's like a week-long thing, and it's to help them get used to college life, get them up to speed with their math skills, understand the different resources on campus, just kind of a familiarity with how do you be a person in higher education and how do you be successful in that. And so it's already a program that's mostly just covering the academic side of it and whatnot, but they wanted an element to help make it a little bit more engaging. So I'm resurrecting the zombie theme, and it's taking place in a zombie apocalypse. So we're doing little vignettes for every day. A friend of mine who's an English guy and he loves performing, so he's gonna be playing these characters and give them like a little intro on each day of what their little task and what the games are for the day. So I'll show you kind of a few of the elements that I've gotten together. One
Yeah.
is there's a map of EWU, and you have to get the students to be familiar in different locations on campus. And so what I'll do here is I'll share my screen, screen 2. And so what we're creating here, or what I created here, was like a word bank matching game. I still have to finish it out, but this is a zombie themed map of campus. And if we zoom in, you can see all the different
I
little
love
locations.
I love it.
We're gonna pare these down, obviously, from all these to the ones that they really just need to know. But it's a fun way to get the students to understand the layout of campus, right? So that's one
That's
thing.
so
And
fun.
and then we actually created a social game that I don't know if you have enough people to maybe even test it out, but I think you might like it. So have you ever heard of Werewolf before?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yes.
I'm
Yeah.
familiar with werewolf. Yes.
So same kind of thing, except with zombies, right?
Yeah.
So the premise is that you have two teams between, I think we said between 15 and 25 people per team, but in the case of the summer bridge, it's going to be about 12 to 15 people per team. And you have some main characters that have special abilities, and then you have the citizens who don't. So then the teams face off, and then they make a decision which person from the other team they eliminate. So
Hmm.
I came up with these different cards for the different characters, and let's see, we'll go with final cards. So this is the assassin. So if somebody gets this card, they have the ability after round 1, the assassin may kill anyone from the other team. They can only perform this action once. So this would be one of those cases where the team whose team this assassin is on could eliminate as many as 2 people in one turn, for example. Or then there's the bitten, the person who's actually infected, that if they remain infected, their team will lose. If they remain infected long enough to where that team doesn't find the other person's infected, that team loses. So yeah. And their motivation is mainly to remain hidden from the opposing team, obviously, because if the opposing team eliminates your zombie, then it's an automatic win and they get 200 points. There's the doctor, and if the doctor survives 10 rounds without being eliminated, he can cure the zombie on your team. So that would result in a loss for the other team.
Hmm.
And then there's the mayor, who kind of tallies the votes and has the ability to veto the choice of the rest of the group at least once. And then there's the sacrificial lamb, has the ability to trade her life for somebody else on the team who has been eliminated. So that's another powerful character. And then the sheriff, if he gets targeted to be eliminated, he gets to pick somebody from the opposing team. And then soothsayer, after what is it, round 5, can reveal the role of a player on the opposing team. Say, oh, I pick you, and they have to say what their role is, and then your team can choose to eliminate them or not. Then townsfolk, no special ability, but if the other team ends up killing your townspeople, they lose points because the point isn't to kill the townspeople, obviously, it's to get rid of the zombie. Then I think that's it. But yeah, so the idea is to have this little card game that the two teams can use to play this social game, and then it'll be a bracket. So winners and then the losers brackets, and then there'll be a whole point structure for the day. And then this last part that I just recently finished is a cryptex, and it's actually the treasure chest that's going to be for a scavenger hunt that the kids are going to have to go on. So there's going to be hints laid all around campus, and so they go to one location, they find the clue to the next location to go to, and if they get there fast enough, then they get the little cryptex here, and then they have to solve the cryptex, obviously. So there's these little, it's just like Da Vinci Code. You remember Da Vinci Code, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so you just get the letters in the right order. Hopefully, I don't make a fool out of myself and find the wrong one. I think that should do it. Oh, come on, help me out here. Oh, there it is. And there it is.
Props.
So
So you've got props. I love
yeah,
that. So
yeah,
right, you're
props.
taking, because we did stuff. Yeah, it was all virtual for us, and now you're like, no, we're gonna take it out back into the real world, the 3D world,
Oh yeah.
and have props.
Yeah, there's plans for like a supply run, so they're going to have to try and carry boxes across campus and see who can get as many boxes from one place to the other. And then water balloons, they're going to try and carry as many water balloons as they can. And the other team has some dodgeballs, and they can toss the dodgeballs at them. And then there's going to be a tower defense game where they have a water balloon launcher, and they have to knock out zombies down on the field and whatnot. So they're having a lot of really intense academic stuff during the rest of the day, and you want to have something fun that they can break that up with, make it feel a little bit summer campy, but still challenging and interesting and stimulating.
Right, and community building,
Yeah,
right? Yeah, that's
absolutely.
really the point. And yeah, normally it would be these kinds of events would be like one-offs, right? Like let's go do capture the flag, or these all sort of, we've all been that summer camp outdoor school experience, scouting or whatever, where you do these things once. But I love that you guys are doing it on theme and creating this immersive kind of day or week for them where like it's an extended theme, right? It's over multiple days.
Right.
When I was at Georgia Tech and I was teaching at Georgia Tech, they actually would have a yearly game of zombie where it was like with kind of like a shot gun or a potato gun, but they would shoot cotton balls at each other to infect other students every year. I don't know where this came from, but it was an ongoing thing. And because when it came around again, you had to say at the beginning of classroom that like no hits that are during class time count. Essentially, it is a truce between zombies and other people within the bounds of the class period. Um, and so students are coming up with fun games and doing things to engage with each other, with community on their own. And so creating opportunities for them to be creative as they're stepping into the world of academia, I think is a really nice thing to do because, yes, they're getting acclimated to higher education, but especially at UWU, and I've listened to some of your other episodes with
Oh,
the faculty that you've
oh my
talked to
gosh.
about all the cool things that they're doing. Your faculty do seem to really want to spark creativity in their students and also understand that maybe not all of them come from an educational background where creativity was valued as something that you're allowed to do. And so starting them off with a immersive zombie game experience, I think gives students acclimated not just to higher education, but also to a higher education institution where creativity and play and fun are happening and are part of the curriculum. So kudos to all of you guys.
Well, again, I get this from you, Kate. It's all thanks to you. And I hate having to be in this position because I have to go to another recording right after because it's the only time they're available. But I'm
Yeah.
gonna say this is just part one of it. Has to be part one of X, because you and I need to keep doing this again and again and again, because I miss it. And it is so awesome to be able to have a chance to talk with you again.
I don't know. I have been exploring some AI stuff, and I know you're like things that I like that are AI. And I know I had to end with this so that you could invite me back to another one so we can just talk about AI.
You didn't
You
need
have
to,
always
but
been-
you did, and now you're getting me all giddy excited.
I know. You've always been on opposing sides when it comes to AI. And so I was like, I'm going to tell Jared that there was one thing that I think is really cool. So
Not necessarily on opposing sides, because
That's true. That's true.
it's a complex I
It's
just gave
so
a workshop on this. We
Yeah.
can talk all about it. Okay, we'll end it here,
Next
and
time.
we'll catch up next time. Okay,
Okay.
God, thank
Have
you
fun.
so much. Oh
Yeah,
gosh, yes, I did
know.
press record. Okay, good.